and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. It is Thursday, the 26th of November, 2020. I am your host, the amazing Super Chris. It's Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. We're not doing a show today. We're going to run a pre-recorded show. My co-hosts Andy Hall and Nokasuchi are taking the break off. Nokasuchi's streaming, so go watch Nokasuchi. But me and Andy are taking the day off. I'm going to spend the time with the wife because she's got the couple days off. So tomorrow we're not going to stream either. I'm going to run a pre-recorded show. Today, I'm going to run the show from Thursday, September 3rd. We had Daniel Fisk Bennett, Andy Hall joined me that day. We had Daniel Fisk Bennett and John Funk. So it was a good show. We had a good time. Back then we didn't do the commercial thing, so I'm going to run a commercial for you just so you have some. Y'all enjoy. Have a happy and safe Thanksgiving, and we'll stop by tomorrow. We'll have another pre-recorded show for you. I'm taking the day off tomorrow too, but we'll have another pre-recorded show. So thank you and take care.
Oh my God. Jesus. Do you like it?
Sometimes you can choose to not be a dick. Yes. Thank you.
I can't take it off. I can't take it off. Like, take it off. I can't. Take it off. I can't take it off. Like, take it off. I can't.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. I am your host, the amazing Super Chris. It is Thursday, the 3rd of September. It is the 3rd of September, 2020. How are you doing today? Are you ready for the weekend? I'm ready for the weekend. We're we're past the halfway mark. We're almost to the place. You know what? We've got a very interesting topic today, and I got a lot of people joining me. I've got my co-host this morning, Andy Hall. Good morning, Andy. How are you doing? From the Laughing in Purgatory, a Laughing in Disbelief blog over at Pathos. Good morning, Andy.
I'm doing well, sir. How about yourself?
I am doing wonderful so far. I'm ready again for the weekend. Yeah.
Good.
We've also got John from, John from Atheist Incorporated and Reading Funk. He's joining us today, as well as last minute surprise guest, Daniel Fisk Bennett from the AAP and the Atheists Against Pseudoscience Nonsense. So good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Good morning.
All right. So today, before I get too far, I get excited before I get too far. I want to thank all the people who showed up in the damnation, all of our guests, wonderful people in the chat. Trina DeLuca, Critical Cripple is here. Dave, I'm trying to sweet talk Dave. If you're watching the chat, I'm trying to sweet talk Dave into coming on the show. So maybe we'll see him in the show. He was actually on the show just after I first started. And I've been thinking about this. When Dave, when you were on the show, he wasn't on his show. He just used his icon, that yellow Dr. House kind of picture there. I had never seen his face. I had not seen Dave's face at that point whenever he was on my show and been off my show. It was after that I'd finally seen Dave's face. So good morning to Brainbug, Grumpy Old Dude. Hey, good morning, Ed. Say hi to the wife. Phil Lister is here. Trina DeLuca, all manner of wonderful people. Edward Chiriak is here. Good morning. And also to all the people on Facebook, good morning to the people who watch on Facebook and the people who listen on the Daily Atheist Morning Show live stream podcast. So good morning, everybody. So, guys, we have an interesting topic. I've got some articles up over here. Well, now that we've got 4, I can't really pop them up yet because of the thing, but I'll mention them as we go along, about what I often refer to as the Christian war on science. And these Christians meeting against public order and spreading coronavirus and causing harm to our society on the regular.
You people are nuts.
Absolutely. Let me pull up some while you guys get rolling. Andy, I'll let you take over. I'm going to pull up some articles here and I will talk about them.
I think we all have some personal story about interacting with someone who doesn't believe in science or doesn't understand what science really does. In fact, I just wrote a satirical piece this morning on my blog, Laughing in Disbelief. Yes, that is a cheap plug about, once again, this is a satirical piece on how 88% of Americans cannot determine what is it? It's 88% of Americans mistake a moldy bagel for science.
Yeah.
And I think that the joke underlies a sad truth that a lot of people don't understand what science is and how it works.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a huge theme when I debated Kent Hovind, that he had these really childish and just wrong ideas about astronomy and evolution. And, it's really troubling that the only people that do that shit are people that are Christians and Bible believers. So, that's a big indicator that they're full of shit.
If I may, I wouldn't say just Christians. There's a lot of New Wave.
True.
That is true.
Islam is also full of it as well. They do it as well. It just really depends. I mean, Hindu.
Yeah, that is true.
Theism in general, you could just
In fact, perhaps every damn one of them do it. I'm trying to think. Are there any of them that don't? Are there any like scientifically based faiths out there? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I even in I think New York City, they had some Jewish group of people come out and say, hey, you're restricting us too much. We need to be able to meet or something. So, I mean, it's Jewish, Christian, Muslim. Thank you for mentioning that, because when I titled the show, I actually had a hard time. Should I title it theists? Should I title it Christians? In this particular case, I went specifically evangelicals. But great point.
We could focus it, though, because, I mean, being that it seems like this right now is about the United States and its evangelical population that have been so adamant about anti-science propaganda that it's effectively a danger to society. We have plenty to talk about. I mean, we could talk about, Hasidic Jews in Jerusalem refusing to social distance in a different point, if you'd like.
Yes. In this particular case, though, I mean, I actually pondered it and I thought, well, we could consider all, or maybe we should limit it to just, and that's why I went evangelicals, because they kind of are right now the biggest, it seems, offender.
Oh, yeah.
They're meeting in huge groups. They're actually, the Jewish people who want to meet. I don't know about the Muslims. I haven't been keeping up with their views of it, but
I have a
the Christians
who's been told me about it.
Right. The Christians are directly against, this is God is protecting us, and also the state. They're also controlling the state. I guess that's probably a lot of what goes on over there too. So, I've got Andy's. I'm going to put a link to Andy's blog over at Patheos for those people who are interested. We've got questions, curious. I thought I had a link to it. I think I've just got a link to his YouTube channel though. So let me take care of that for Andy.
Sure.
Yeah, so specifically, evangelicals seem to be our problem. I've got these articles over here. Let me just one of them is titled, Most States Have Religious Exemptions to COVID-19. This is a Pew Research study about all these states that have, I mean, there's only a few, but primarily, 15 states have full restrictions, but the rest of them have some sort of lightened restrictions or no restrictions at all on churches gathering during this pandemic. So, and then let's see, I've got another one here. Minnesota, first to report COVID-19 death linked to Sturgis motorcycle rally.
I saw that.
Another article, churches emerge as major source of coronavirus cases. New York Times. You know what I mean? This is churches they're spreading this stuff and it's killing people, of course.
You know what I've heard, and it was a football player who I believe is religious who said this, that he was just going to let natural selection, not survival of the fittest. That was his term. He was going to let survival of the fittest work on all of this COVID-19 out. And it's like, what kind of society do we have when we have someone who obviously doesn't understand how natural selection works, equating survivability with morality?
Right. Absolutely. Bullionator Bool from the chat. Good morning, Bool, by the way, points out 100,000 deaths and counting.
Oh, it's more than 100,000.
Yeah.
Plus.
We are grazing 200 pretty soon.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
But wait, this is a hoax. Okay. So peep this. It's a hoax. Wait, it's a hoax. Over here, it's a hoax. Let me do this. It's a hoax. And yet conservatives were willing to drop like 6 trillion plus. What are we up to? 8 trillion plus now? I mean, they were actually willing to do that into the economy for a hoax. I'm just,
there's
saying.
Swinging back to the evangelical part.
There you go. Thank you.
There is this love affair, and anyone who is familiar with evangelicals, they have this thing where they just idolize the idea of being persecuted. And the I guess could use this term ironically. This is their cross that they want to bear. They want to be persecuted for their beliefs. They want to have that because it is like a biblical thing for them. So to be told that they can't go to their places of worship because of COVID, effectively what they are hearing is Caesar saying that the Christians can't do that, and we're just getting ready to feed them to lions, and therefore, this is their calling out. And so the masks for them just are a symbol of their persecution per se. And it's amazing listening to the way they try to piece this together. I mean, they're grasping for straws. They really are. But you can see it is a deep-seated want of theirs. The Christ-like thing of being persecuted for your belief. This is what they want. And Absolutely. COVID is that foil that they want.
Daniel, have you had a conversation with an anti-masker evangelical?
Of course.
Talk about that.
I run AAPN. And I hear the nonsense from all over the place. I've been doing this since 2015. So this has been something that I would say has been 5 years in the making. I've watched, since I created AAPN, this anti-science movement from right-wing theistic loons build. And now that we have a president that caters to these rather idiotic individuals, they are empowered and they think they're in the right because their president says so. So when you talk to them, there are so many rationales that they will use. It's a hoax. It's really not that bad. It's just the flu. And I've spoken to actual epidemiologists. I've asked them, what are the similarities between the flu and COVID-19? And they said it's about the same as the similarities between a banana and a human. That's great. Are there some similarities? Yes, they both share DNA. Well, in their case, both share RNA. Are they both a virus? Yeah, but from that point, the similarities start to really go different. So you listen to that. As I said, it gets into the just the mentality of them, where it's some of them is that very libertarian kind of don't tell me what to do, I do what I want kind of thing. But then they're also on the side of law and order. Go figure. So you can't figure out what they want. So they pick and choose what laws they want you to follow.
Yeah.
But you have the other individuals who just seem to think that because they pray and because they are good Christians, whatever their definition of good Christian is, but because they are good Christians, they are therefore immune. Yeah. And they don't have to worry, because if they go to church, they will not be harmed, because that is their safe space. And because they're in their safe space, they have a phantom force field of God's healing, whatever. Even though we know this not to be true, we've seen this in Seattle with choirs. It took one person, and now 2 people died, and like 30-something people were sickened by it. So
yeah, there's an interesting true story about this town, this city that was facing a tornado warning, and they all rushed to the church, the religious people did, so that they could pray it away. And while they were there, the tornado hit the church, killing everyone involved.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it's true what you're saying about grasping at straws, because I'm trying to find something in the Bible here that suggests that you shouldn't wear a mask. And there's something about the fact that you shouldn't wear a head covering, supposedly. And another article saying that masks represent supernatural beings. So that's like the excuse there that
I've seen people equate it to the mark of the beast.
Yes.
And it's just some irony to it. I mean, they're wearing their MAGA hats.
Oh yeah. Oh, thank you for pointing that out.
While they're saying it's the mark of the beast,
and you'll bear it on your forehead. Oh, it hurts right here. It hurts. Thank you, Daniel, for pointing that out.
So, as I said, it's just one of those kinds of things that you listen to where their rationale is, and obviously it's broken rationale, but you see how they're trying to string this thing together, and it's usually that, as I said, I'm kind of reiterating again, that hodgepodge of that want to be persecuted, that them having this libertarian kind of fuck you, I won't do what you tell me kind of thing, to bring up a particular musician, and there's also that whole not believing in what the science has to say. It's a hoax, or it's not that bad. It's all CNN and fake news. It's a ploy to make Trump look bad, or just keep. You could add to that pile of doo doo, and then the last part, obviously, I went blank on it, but I digress.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we just have a lot of it going on. I'm surprised. Have people in the chat? Not everybody has the ability to drop some links, but I mean, we've got so many of these instances of these different groups. 800 kids at the Georgia State University, I believe. 800 kids, I say. 800 students at the Georgia State University. Pardon me while I get this up. Came down with the COVID recently. I mean, a lot of the spread is because of these light sanctions on things like churches. So now you got a university here that, now of course you do have the party kids who are going to go party and get it and spread, and they don't care what happens. But you've got these right-wing groups who go intentionally meet, intentionally spread. They don't care. They don't believe God is going to protect them. Jesus is going to protect them. Oh, and it blows this stuff out of proportion. Okay, there we go.
The other one, it became a partisan issue. Originally we had the current occupant of the White House refusing to wear a mask, and he's equated it almost to a sign of weakness. And these troglodytes that support him have this true grit mentality. They're tough. They're strong. They're gun owners. It's like, whoop-de freaking do. Anyways, but because they have this true grit, I'm a tough guy. I own a biker and I have a beer belly and I go to Sturgis. I'm a tough guy. I don't need a mask. So I'm reminded of, there was an event recently. I shared it onto my profile, and I even shared it onto AAPN, where there was a Trump rally that right before the Trump rally, there was an announcer that said to remind everyone mask use is highly encouraged. And you see this crowd of people booing, and none of them are wearing masks.
Yeah.
So it's also become kind of a symbol of we aren't the left, the part of the leftist agenda to be these sheep, to be masked, and our mouths are covered, therefore we can't speak.
I was going into a grocery store yesterday, and beside the store, there's this outdoors outfitters place that sell firearms, and a guy was on his way out, and he had like a MAGA, but it was a cowboy hat, right? He had that. He was coming out with this bolt action rifle, something like that, and no mask. So it just kind of seemed like it was meme worthy to me, I guess.
Was he planning to shoot the mask? I mean, to shoot the virus or masks, or what was he planning to do? I would just wonder about that.
Yeah, as would I.
I saw something like that at Bass Pro Shop too. I even actually messaged some state representatives about it since it was so bad. I was rather shocked. I walked in there with my son, and we went to go get some quick corkies. This was something that we use for salmon fishing up here because we were getting stocked up for the salmon season. And to our shock and dismay, Theo was even like shocked about it. So many people weren't wearing masks in there, even though it's the law in this state now that you have to wear masks inside of a place of business. But you had so many of them that literally were not even wearing them at all, even though they had to be wearing one when they walked in. They literally will be turned around at the door. That's the law. But they weren't wearing them at all, or they had them as chin hammocks. Or the one that I just can't stand is when they have just their mouth covered and their freaking nose is sticking out. Yeah. And the way that I kind of put it out, kind of relayed that to people, it's like putting on underwear but having your pee-pee sticking out. It's completely defeat the point, the purpose of the mask by having your nose sticking out.
Yeah, we call them dick noses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things I kind of, if we're going to talk about the religious right and the Christian war on terrorism, that's one thing. Let's put that over here. Now we've got the political right. The political right is over here, and they're using that religious rights mask perspective on mask to coalesce them in ignorance against the left.
Before we get onto that, I just want to just frame this in the sense that Christianity has always been a terrorist organization. They have used terrorism. They have used terrorist methods to further their ends, whether it is the fear of hell or the fear of persecution in this life. Christianity as a whole is a terrorist kind of philosophy, a death cult, and it controls its members through fear.
It's your standard Abrahamic religion. That's how they do things. Oops, someone got money.
Victorian woman arrested for inciting a protest.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Oh.
Digital Demonic Davros has thank you for the $2 of Australian dollars of support to the channel. Says Victorian women arrested for inciting the protest. I take it you guys were able to hear that this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I sent you something. Another article, Chris. Being that psychology is kind of my bread and butter, there was a study that showed there was a correlation between refusing to wear a mask and narcissism and even psychopathy.
Right. Narcissists and psychopaths are more likely to refuse masks, to wear masks, says new research. Yeah. Yeah, not surprised, really. But that also falls into what we were saying earlier, about the religious right being taken, the Christian right being used by the political right. And so it is a religious topic.
Yeah.
And it's also a political topic, a political football now. And the political people are using it to move and motivate the religious people. That's just kind of all. Yeah, that's all. And this sometimes we don't help ourselves sometimes. And this is a great article, by the way. I can't put this up. I may hide you in a minute just for fun. Oh, and it's got a picture of this guy being a jerk. Let me do this for people.
It really makes sense. There's this dark triad of personality traits: Machiavellianism, narcissism, and thought disorder. These kind of thought disorders. And when you think about evangelicals and not putting on the mask, it seems to really encapsulate that dark triad of personality traits: this narcissism, this thought disorder, and this need to control others.
I'm gonna post a link to that article in the chat. Thank you for that, Daniel. So there's a link to it. Absolutely. So it's another. Okay.
I just sent you something else. But anyways, I totally agree with what you were saying there, Andy. I mean, sometimes I'm at a loss. Sometimes I'm at a loss for words. I mean, it's just so insane.
Well, it's easy to feel like you're drowning in religious fanaticism and delusion and darkness at this time. I find it myself, and I have to seek out the things that make me feel good, so that I'm not drowning in this sewerage, basically.
You know, there's a real taboo around religion. And if you do something in the name of religion, then we're not supposed to question what you're doing. You know, we don't question that motive. So I'm curious, Daniel, we have these religious terrorists refusing to wear a mask and spread the virus. What can we do about this? Should we start arresting people for this, or what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so the moment you start arresting people, the moment they get what they want. This is they have that need to be persecuted. They want to be persecuted. And the more you ratchet down, the louder they get, the more it feeds that need. So the reality is, I've used this as an example for other things when it comes down to backwards people. There was an event over on the East Coast. I think it was back in 2012 or whatever. But a right-wing hate group, literal neo-Nazis, were coming in to have a rally. And their mayor had a fantastic idea. Effectively, he got with some psychologists and asked, what would be a good way to make this, completely backfire on them? And so what they did is everybody, who was counter-protesting got in clown outfits and everything else and started making fun of them. They were laughing at them. So instead of getting that, that reaction of, they want that condemnation, they want to be felt like persecuted. Instead, if they're being laughed at, like, wow, look how stupid you are, okay, Darwin approves. If you have people really actually laughing at their stupidity and ignorance, it is that much better of a tool, really, than it is to go the very authoritarian route. Now, granted, I mean, sometimes I think your hands do get tied when somebody is doing something that I would say is hazarding the community, like saying someone who's knowingly positive entering a senior center or a neonatal unit, something like that. Yeah, at that point, yes, you need to make that arrest because that person is effectively a danger to the community. But for those people who are not wearing the masks, if they realize that people now think they are stupid, instead of them being persecuted for their beliefs, now you're just laughing at them. It's like, wow, you're okay, buddy. Good job. Let me know how that works out for you. That has been shown to be a much better psychological tool because they are not eliciting that response that they cognitively want.
So Daniel, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but this was specifically for a large group of racists, basically, who are doing a rally.
Yes.
So that particular method of clowning and shaming in a certain sense may not be the right tactic in other situations.
No. Because I mean, let's say those hate group people are now being violent and hurting people. Obviously, they want to have that seen. They want to be seen, but now they're hurting people, actually physically hurting people. They need to be stopped at that point. You can't just laugh at somebody while they're beating the crap out of somebody.
Right. Exactly.
Does it seem like it's an impossible idea to influence the leaders of the churches to kind of mandate wearing a mask? For example, if we got the Pope to recommend wearing a mask, then perhaps that would help with the Catholic population.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up. The Pope actually also did that for global warming by acknowledging global climate change. And suddenly you saw the Catholic Church made this full change of direction. And now they suddenly support the idea of global climate change. And then you also saw the same exact thing with mask wearing, where the Pope was saying that. And I don't want to give the Catholic Church too much credit, so I'm walking on eggshells here. But what I don't see is people like Pat Robertson or these other wackaloon, whatever that knucklehead that said, COVID-19 and then blows into the freaking TV monitor, and spits all over it effectively. I blow.
Yeah.
We don't see those people. Yeah.
And he sucks too.
Right. But we don't see people like that. I'm pretty sure. And this was one of the things that I knew if the president started wearing a mask and showing him wearing a mask, monkey see, monkey do. His supporters are effectively cult followers. They will do what he does. And
he wore it once, right?
Twice now. I think if I remember in public. But there was, for instance, there was two incidents that come to mind when it comes down to Donald Trump's egregious stupidity and the things that he says causing real world problems. There was an incident where he brought up a certain type of drug, and they found it to be an aquarium. Certain aquariums had this drug in it, and this couple, after listening to Donald Trump, somehow figured out that this active ingredient was in a certain aquarium treatment, and they took it, and the husband subsequently died. Another thing that happened is when Donald
Play
Trump
stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Right, but I mean, these are ignorant people, though.
Sorry. Pardon
and
me.
when you have Trump, when he did that whole injecting disinfectant and other things, or drinking disinfectant, or however, well, there was also an uptick in poison control case, calls because involving disinfectant. So when he was talking about UV lighting. Being someone who's worked on nuclear submarines, part of a radiation burn is what we would call a third-degree sunburn. If you inject a UV light, you just effectively create a a three-dimensional sunburn inside of the body. It's effectively a cauterization. So
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, you're good.
Okay, so I have a comment from the chat here referring to regarding these people as terrorists. Cindy Plaza says, I think there has to be a talk regarding the definition of terrorism and labeling theists that way. Point to be made, though, is on the right, it doesn't take that kind of consensus for them to start talking about labeling anybody who calls himself Antifa a terrorist. They're not having those kind of willy-nilly feelings about that. You know what I mean? So, but second of all, I agree, actually. Not everybody who does this is a terrorist. Who would we consider an actual terrorist? Is Greg Locke, Pastor Greg Locke, would the pastors be considered terrorists? Are the ones, so you've got a little old lady, she's been told not to go gather, but she defies that. She goes and gathers, she gets sick, she takes that, even though she knows, and she goes to the nursing home to visit other old ladies, and she gets several of them sick. Is that terrorism?
You could say that.
Is that ignorance?
You could say that person is a victim of groupthink.
Okay. But all right. So then who would be the terror? There's bound to be, because the pastors. There's got to be some culpability here.
The terrorists would be the ones that are on the top of the highest hill.
So the Greg Locks.
Yeah, screaming, that it's either a hoax. These are people like Alex
Jim Baker
Jones,
and his stuff.
Jim Baker, yeah, those kinds of people who are literally saying things that are flying contrary to common sense and what the scientific community is saying. Those people, you could say, are the actual terrorists. The people who are going along with it are the unwitting followers and who are the victims of their terrorists.
I think you can be an ignorant terrorist. I think you can use terror to carry out or to further your own political goals or whatever goals you have, and while using terrorism, but not being fully aware of your actions. But you can be an ignorant terrorist.
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you then, Andy, would you have to specifically have intent to be a terrorist, or would that not be a requirement?
It wouldn't be a requirement, no. I mean, if you're using terrorism, if you're using fear, if you're doing those things to achieve a political means, a political ends, then I think that is a good operational definition of terrorist.
I think you hit that almost right on the head. In fact, if I remember right.
Yeah.
I tried.
I think the definition of terrorist was like something along the lines of using violence to influence politics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. There's kind of a lot of that going on, really, by definition.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that going on. It's not. It doesn't have to necessarily be using violence, isn't it? The threat of violence, the fear. Yeah, using fear. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to be fear or violence, even.
This is what's so pernicious about so many religions, is that at their base, they are terrorist organizations. I want to restate that, is the fact that this is their bread and butter. This is how they survive. This is how they get seats, butts in the pews. This is how they get their money. It is through terrorism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, see, and I kind of agree with what Miss Cindy Plaza is saying. She says, I think intent is necessary to be a terrorist. And I agree. Now, since that's kind of what I'm trying to split the hair on, at what point do we consider them terrorists? Now, they are I mean,
so let's say that I believe I'm going to get 72 virgins when I die, right? Or I'm instructed by the Pope back in the First Crusade that if I go to the Holy Land and commit acts of terror, then I will be brought to heaven, regardless of my sins. I'm just an ignorant stooge, but I am still a terrorist.
Right. Yeah, but you also still have the intent to commit violence there. I'm trying to think of like a scenario where someone
or harm. It doesn't have to be violence necessarily. It can be harm in any fashion. So whether you go and you strap on a bomb, or whether you go in there and you take a vial full of virus and you smash it on the floor and then you infect people intentionally. Either way, it's the same thing. Now, in this term, the difference is I used a vial for description, but they're using themselves the same way a suicide bomber used themselves back in the day to get through or get to people and then infect them. And they're told this is going to happen. They're told, do not gather. If you gather, we have example after example of churches gathering, people getting sick, church choirs getting sick and coming down. We've got examples. So they've been told, they've been warned, they know there is intent there. Now they have to prove their God is going to protect them by not wearing a mask, by gathering when they're not supposed to, and going and do their thing. And how is that any different than terrorist boys who've been convinced and who go to a mosque and who listen to their mufti who tell them to go not wear their mask and go out into public and press that button and rug up and hug other people with their COVID-19 on? How is that any different? It's not. These are terrorists when they know. So she's a sweet little old grandma. She's been told. She's defying. She's like, I am defying these orders for my God. That is right there is they know they're going to cause harm. They're doing it in the name of their God. How is that not terrorism?
Well, in some ways, these
people Chris. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, are so ignorant though that they don't realize they're causing harm. They think they're immune, and this is that ignorant. This is that ignorance. Is yes, they're a terrorist, but they are terrorists through ignorance because they are just going along with it. You can't see COVID with your naked eye. And these people seem to think that because they are true believers, they will. And I think if I remember right, there are like passages. I'm not very familiar with the Bible, but I do remember there is something along the line of if you're a true believer, nothing will harm you. You could drink poison or something.
There's more than one along those lines.
Yeah, and they often die after getting bit by rattlesnakes. And we have examples. Why do they still do it, even though they've seen, hey, Uncle Bob was here and he died. Here I am with my snake. Well, was Uncle Bob's faith too weak? Is that how that works?
It is a pernicious aspect of religion that if someone dies, let's say from COVID-19, who isn't wearing a mask, or who's handling a snake and dies from a snake bite, then people around them, the survivors, will shrug their shoulders and say, "It's God's plan."
Right.
Or wasn't strong enough or something, right?
Sure, there's some kind of explanation.
The point, again, I think is trying to that Cindy's trying to hone down is what about someone who doesn't believe COVID exists, and what intent to harm can you give them? By now, though, how can you not believe it exists? Even Trump has come out, though, like I said earlier, I made the mention, $6 trillion the conservatives have dropped in. How can you not believe it exists? And if you do, then that's a sign of there's other kind of issues you're having. You're having other kind of mental issues. We can try to, now if we want to change that one step down to go, okay, well, what if they have an IQ of under 80? Or what if, all right, eventually we can move away from the idea of it's intentional terrorism. But if they've been warned, they go and they do it anyway, and then they go despite being warned. How can they not know? We've got laws, we got mandates. They're intentionally breaking them. Hey, look, we're going to go meet at this church despite the legal warning against doing so. That alone, it doesn't matter how ignorant they are, whether they believe in a virus or not. They've been legally warned. This is dangerous. Do not do it. You're going to harm people. That's culpability right there. I don't care whether you call them terrorists, pseudo-terrorists, mini-terrorists. I don't know. Let's give them something. But some kind of culpability needs to be applied to these people.
I think you can be an agent of terrorism. Let's say a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old child who is an unwitting, who doesn't have the cognitive abilities, like you were saying, Chris, to understand what they're doing. they can
There you
still
go.
be an agent of terrorism.
And there you go. Exactly. I heard that during the height of the bombing terrorism in the Middle East, they would take like a father and force him to do it. Has got his children at gun. Of course, he's not intentionally doing it. He's not willfully doing it. He's doing it against his will. Or they would drive a car up with kids in it. The kids have no idea. They're just plots. There's lots of ways that people could not be and yet still be a part of. I totally get that. But in our case, it's a little different. They are intentionally being told, specifically being told, this is what's happening. Do not go there. We've got numerous examples in the news. If they're ignorant now, it's self-ignorance.
Well,
It's willful ignorance.
It goes a lot with conspiracy theories. People still will believe in conspiracy theories, despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. QAnon is a fantastic example of people believing in the stupidest shit. Despite what the overwhelming evidence is, these people are convinced, and to show them otherwise, that it has what's called the backfire effect. Yeah. You've probably heard of it before. So for those of whom who don't know what the backfire effect is, it's a pretty simple human condition where the more you show someone that they're wrong, the more they dig in and double down. And so these people are so convinced that they see the president's not reacting to it, the president's downplaying it. Maybe they may acknowledge that maybe COVID's a thing, but they will find some way to justify that it's not that bad, it's overblown, the media lies. This is just an excuse to criminalize my beliefs. I have my rights. Don't tell me what I can and can't do, kind of thing. This is a much more complicated issue than just let's take it and just blanket it over and just call it one thing. Of course, these people have more than one different reason for this, and one person could acknowledge it existing, another person will flat out say no, it doesn't exist. It's amazing to watch the mental gymnastics that they do. So,
Daniel, I don't want to fall into the black and white fallacy here, but in your opinion, what's more important for us to do? Is it to promote science or to fight pseudoscience?
I would say it's a both, because as science progresses, you have pseudoscience pop up. People have a habit of playing telephone when it comes down to science. That's one thing. I have a habit of pointing out sensationalized headlines, where you look at what the local news says, and you read what they say, and it's like, oh, some crazy fantastic thing, and it's like, well, that's not what actually the study said. You're the one who said it, not the study. But the problem is, people will read what what the news station has, and suddenly coffee causes cancer. It's like, no, that's not what the study said. It just showed there was a 1% possibility increase. When it came down to heavy coffee drinking or something. And by the way, this is just an example. This is not an actual thing, but I'm just using it, just for hypothetical. But yeah, they say, oh, we found that in lab rats, with drinking coffee every single day, twice a day, or a whole pot's worth, whatever you want to say, causes a possibility of 1% cancer. Possibility, and then the news station will take it, run with it, sensationalize it, and now coffee causes cancer, and now everyone's thinking coffee causes cancer. Yeah, we've seen things like that before, and so that's how pseudoscience is born a lot of times, or it's something that comes into because you want something bad enough, therefore you're going to believe it.
Let me ask you this, Derek. I've got a news headline up here. It's just a paragraph. Pastor refuses to wear mask because he can't picture Jesus wearing a mask. A prominent Christian pastor is refusing to wear a mask on the grounds that Jesus probably wouldn't wear one either. Andrew Womack, a television evangelist from Colorado, recently spoke out against face coverings despite the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. So I'm curious what you think about these church leaders. How should we address these people? Should this guy be responsible and judicially or in some other way? What do you think about that?
I agree with Andy on his original point. Those people are the terrorists. Those individuals should be held culpable. And this goes back to something I said even back when people were refusing the MMR vaccine and stuff like that. When that was happening, one of the comments...
Good show today, Ty.
One of the things that I used to say was that people who refuse to get their MMR vaccine and then wind up getting somebody else sick after they got sick should be held legally liable. Now, granted, in the case like with COVID, it is so wild and out and about. But if you are going out and saying don't wear a mask, don't do that, that person, yes, should be held to some sort of legal liability because they said something that potentially could get people killed.
Okay. Yeah. So, that's just the kind of fine hair that I'm trying to, I know maybe I'm a bad person, but now we've got the I want to say mufti. I don't know the name of I don't really know the structure of Islam correctly, so forgive me. But we've got the head of the mosque here, and he's the one telling people not to go put on masks. Let's equate that to strap bombs. He's the one telling us, so we understand why he would be the one. But there are those who are the foot soldiers who are intentionally doing this.
Yeah.
And it's just different. I just see that. But again, it is different though. Cindy's got a good point. A lot of them don't even believe it. I think that's part of the hard part.
These are people who, they pick and choose their beliefs. And it reminds me of my former father-in-law. I had a very short-lived marriage back when I was in the Navy to someone who I should have never married. But anyways, I digress. My former father-in-law effectively had this unbelievable belief that effectively, if it wasn't written in the Bible, it didn't matter. If it's not a biblical truth, I use this in total air quotes. If it's not a biblical truth, it doesn't matter. Therefore, we should just ignore it. Evolution's not in the Bible. Germ theory is not in the Bible. Plate tectonics is not in the Bible. God did everything. People get sick because there's a biblical reason. So,
did this gentleman use electricity at any point?
Did he what?
Did he use electricity at any point?
Yeah. Found a reason.
He was a walking contradiction, anyways. I did not get along with him at all for understandable reasons.
Yeah. Sure. Well, you can see how people who have these thought disorders, when they're engaging with religion, how religion is like this accelerant for craziness. Mm-hmm. It just makes it worse.
It's just like the people who have, Leviticus tattoos about, homosexuality, but yet, and they're like, what is it? A couple lines down, there's a, thing about in Leviticus about not having tattoos. You gotta scratch your head. They pick and choose. They need a foil. That's what they want. They want something to be angry about. They want something to be able to, to demonize somebody else, but then the moment you point it back at them, suddenly they're persecuted.
Yeah. I just have one more question. I want to reiterate this just to maybe get a little bit more feedback. Let's say that I'm a Christian believer and the church pastor is telling us not to wear masks, that it's biblical, that we shouldn't do it. And I believe that. And I also believe wholeheartedly through the Holy Spirit that I'm experiencing that we cannot be infected by this. I'm totally in for this. And let's say that I actually have COVID and I go out and I infect someone.
That reminds me of the woman who they interviewed early on in this infection. It was the woman that was in a car, and the news reporter held up a mic and said, why are you not worried? And the woman said, because I've been bathed in the blood of Jesus. And
yeah,
I mean, outside looking in, that just sounds macabre, just in general. Bathed in the blood of what? But anyways, they think they're immune. They're not going to be hurt. Goes back to what I said originally. Because they're a true believer, therefore they can drink the poison and not die. So, and if everyone else got sick, it wasn't them. It was somebody else.
So would you say that particular person would be just as responsible as someone that knew better, so to speak?
That goes to how most laws are written. Just because you didn't know, ignorance of the law is not, is not a point of defense. Just because you were not aware that it was illegal to shoot deer at that time doesn't mean that you shouldn't be held criminally liable. Just like saying an engineer unknowingly through incompetence didn't know that this would, whatever he just designed had a structural design flaw, and hundreds of people died, doesn't mean he shouldn't be held culpable through his ignorance.
Right.
In terms of rating, I'm calling that person a terrorist. I would
that's the
call
deal.
them an MNFer terrorist. If I could have
that's
a
a good
t-shirt,
question.
it would be branding them as an MNFer terrorist. That's what I think. Yeah.
I guess that's a good point. Where the intent comes in.
Right.
Are they criminal? Are they negligent? Are they a terrorist?
Well, there's still such a thing as criminal negligence.
So there is.
Well, yeah.
This is true.
Yeah. True enough. True enough.
I mean, if let's say, here's this thing. I mean, if you were one of these theists that we are effectively creating, as our model here, and this person who doesn't believe in germ theory and all this other things is an asymptomatic carrier, not wearing a mask, and then they go into their place of work, and they're touching everything, picking their nose and doing this, that, and the other thing, and people wind up dying as a result. We have this habit of not holding that person accountable because of whatever politics you want to bring up. But in the reality, at least in my mind, is that person knowingly, whether they knew it or not, did not, use the proper procedures, and because of their ideology, got people killed.
Mm-hmm. AA in the chat says ignorance is not. Oops, I screwed up. Is no excuse in the eyes of the law.
So would you say that would be a murder then? I'm just curious.
Manslaughter, not murder.
Manslaughter.
Manslaughter.
Manslaughter. Yeah.
So you could claim involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said, Daniel.
You know what? We've got 10 minutes to the top of the hour. I'm going to start winding things down a little bit. John needs to step out, so I'm going to let him go. And thank you, John. Do you have anything coming up that you want to chill out before you head off?
Yeah, so of course I recently debated Kent Hovind. You can see that on my channel, Atheist Incorporated, here on YouTube. And a little bit later today, I have an expert on evolution coming on. His name's John Y. And he's done several TED Talks. He's been working in evolution his entire life. So we're going to talk about the history of evolution, pre-Darwinian science, Alfred Russell Wallace. We're going to talk about rock layers and the Grand Canyon and everything like that. So you can check that out on my channel, Atheist Incorporated. That's all I've got.
Sounds good.
Wonderful.
All
right,
And I'm
you
out
have
of
a great
here,
day.
I'll see you later.
Take care.
All right, I'll see you later. Awesome sauce. Thank you. So, all right, guys. Andy, you want to go ahead and talk about the things you got coming up, and then
I believe I'm on the show called the Daily Atheist Morning Show tomorrow at 9 a.m. And of course,
we're
I
gonna
have
have the Rage with us.
The Rage. I love Mr. Rage. I'm all about anger. I love talking to that guy. I also have someone from Extinction Rebellion coming on my channel tomorrow at 11 a.m. We're going to be talking about environmental activism and trying to hold back the toxic tide.
Okay, excellent. And one of the things we still need to talk about on this show that we really have not gotten into is your vegetarianism.
This is true.
I'm
a month into it, or a little bit over a month. I started at the beginning of August, and so far, no issues, no real issues. Yeah, I've been coasting pretty well.
Yeah. So now that you're a vegetarian, Jesus texts you personally, and you don't have to wipe anymore, right? Is that how that works?
As a representative for a vegetarian nation, you will note that I do not talk about being a vegetarian every 5 minutes.
That's funny you mentioned this. This guy rented out a theater to talk about his vegetarian. No, he didn't. I'm just teasing, Andy. I love you. Tease out of love. Anyway,
I understand.
It was funny. I think it was just the timing of the thing. He sends me these messages. Hey, I'm a vegetarian. Oh, and by the way, I've rented out a theater.
I was a movie theater to see a couple of Buster Keaton movies.
It was the timing of the messages. I'm like, of course you did. Naturally, you need to tell everybody that you're a vegetarian.
It's like people who do parkour. Everyone knows in the room who does.
Of course, everyone knows.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tease, but it's something. I mean, I've got veggie hot dogs down there. We got veggie burgers down there. We're on our way.
I've been pretty excited for some of these new veggie kind of meat substitutes that have been coming along. I mean, I eat anything, unfortunately, and the thing is, I also, if it tastes good, I'm not going to have anything against it so long as it doesn't hurt me. And one of the things that I was looking at, it's like I wanted to try that Impossible Whopper, but for some reason I just never get around to it. And I see all these other meat substitutes, and I'm thinking, like, hey, if it tastes good, I'll eat it.
Sure. Well, I have to tell you is that the Impossible Whopper is my go-to in case I do have an urge for meat. If I have an urge for meat, I'll grab an Impossible Whopper. Yeah.
So is it pretty comparable?
It's comparable enough.
Nice, very nice.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard. Yeah, I haven't tried one yet. We have the wife buys these veggie burgers, and now I'm a guy. I hate to say this, I'm just one of those kind of guys. My meat's got to be well done. I can't do bleeding meat. It's just
who are you?
I know, but to have it bleed, well, they make these veggie burgers to where you can cook them. And you can cut it, and it'll bleed. It's like beet juice or something, and it'll bleed. It looks like the thing. The key, though, for them, and the lucky thing for me, is that if you cook it long enough, it will get rid of it and be just like a well-done burger. I've actually
have
enjoyed
to tell you, the only people who I've met who likes their meat well done across the board are the Scots and the Irish. Just just burn it. Just burn it.
With ketchup on top, right?
Well, a nice little brown sauce. A little brown sauce, maybe.
I was sitting there. I worked in the oil field, right? And I'm sitting there. I showed up, and I got this salad, and this tool pusher I worked with sit down beside me, and he's got this steak, and he cuts into it, and I mean, it's like I don't want to say arterial spray, but it squirted out of there. I mean, oh my goodness, and it was so raw. His steak tried to eat my lettuce.
Oh, I'm that way with my steak. I like to have to chase down my meal. Yeah. If you watch me eating steak, I mean, you could hear the British narrator, Mutual Omaha presents Daniel eating his steak.
Right.
It is a scene out of pure barbarity. Gotcha. I like my steak blue in the center, so I am one of those people.
Arterial spray. We were talking about,
you just see it. Yeah, it just looks like some scene out of the Ice Age of the Neanderthal just got done chasing the mammoth, and they're just sitting there eating the raw meat with blood-soaked hands.
Me grog eat cow.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is our. So I'll eat meat in some forms. I quit eating meat off the bone a long time ago, like ribs or chicken off the bone. Not this fool. No.
Well,
I had actually stayed to where it was just drumsticks with chicken. I would eat a drumstick, and then I remember the last time I was eating this drumstick, and I pulled it back, and this vein got stuck in my tooth, and it snapped back. A literal vein was stuck in my tooth, and it snapped. I'm like, what kind of native or Neanderthal kind of man eat meat off the bone? I haven't done it. I don't do it. No.
I have to tell you, I'm an atheist, but I have a religious conviction that if you're going to eat chicken and waffles, it has to be chicken on the bone.
I don't need you. Yeah,
I came across a chicken leg that I'm pretty sure it was cancerous. I remember looking at it, the bone was all kind of like bubbled up all on the side, and had this like weird, hard, gristly, meaty stuff, and I'm like, yep, I'm not eating that anymore.
Not eating that. Hell no. Hell to the no. I eat shredded chicken. The wife does the shredded chicken. It's seasoned, and same. I'll eat that, but just to eat it right off the bone myself.
And as Chris knows, I'm an avid sportsman.
He is.
You'd think that I was, this, Confederate waving flag Republican by what I drive. I mean, I drive the 1988 F-250. That's gigantic, and I'm always outside. I mean, ask Chris how many times he's seen pictures of me fishing. And I'm
in
fishing.
The nature.
I'm out there in the middle of the river doing the true salmon fishing and everything, or I'm on the ocean crabbing or something. So I mean, I eat a lot of fish, and the thing is, because I live in the Pacific Northwest where all the good stuff is, I also go hunting in the fall and the winter time. Mm-hmm. So, but the thing is, the way that I see it is I'm now controlling the circumstances of how ethically that was harvested. I'm not sitting there with catching the fish and just throwing it and letting it asphyxiate. I take it to I pull it in, I immediately dispatch it. It's over. if I'm hunting, I'm not trophy hunting. I'm not,
Right.
slowly killing it. I'm going for the most instant thing, not just for my safety, but to make sure it ends.
Yeah.
And
well, what you're implying is true. I think that there are different levels, right?
Mhm.
That factory farming is obviously just an abomination, while shooting your own game, that's in a different category.
Well, yeah, and also if you're quick about it, I mean, I'm okay with the ones where they use the cattle prod because it's immediately in the head and it's over. But the ones where they do that squeeze method, or where they just cut them and then they let them bleed like that, that's just wrong.
It is.
And you just have to think, it's like, that thing knows it's dying. I mean, I'd rather it just not know it's dying and just,
Sure.
here it is, and then it's over. And so when I go out there, it's not that I'm just a good old boy with a big wad of dip in my mouth or something.
I hope that you're not using lead shot when you're shooting critters, because that can get in the food and you'd be eating lead.
Yeah, it depends. So the way that if I'm going to do it, I'm shooting it in a spot where I'm not eating it anyways. I use a headshot typically.
Yeah.
So it's pretty. I try to be as careful as I possibly can.
Yes.
Sometimes you can't really choose, what shot you have, because if you have to take a long shot, you're gonna have to have something with weight.
Yeah.
But if you're saying I'm gonna be shooting it in a spot where I'm not eating it anyways, and hopefully the bullet passes through it anyways.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. You use a fast enough bullet, it typically does. But anyways, you don't really have that worry. And when you go fishing, for instance, same kind of thing. You're using a lead weight. I mean, I do use steel weights typically, though.
Sure.
And I do that for more ethical purposes for the environment, being that the Pacific Northwest is known for being very pristine, and it has those beautiful wildernesses, and I don't want to make it worse. For instance, I don't fish with monofilament typically.
I have no idea what that is, sir.
It's a type of it's fishing line pretty much made out of a PVC kind of thing, but I use braided line instead. So I mean, it's not as...
What if I shoot the empty KFC bucket?
That doesn't count. You can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for that.
It reminds me of there was a joke that I read a long time ago back when I was in the Navy. It says someone was like, it was a big bold letters that said, "I shot my first turkey, but they kicked me out of the grocery store afterwards."
Tons of mice. Thank you for the $2 of support to the channel. Appreciate that. Yes.
Thanks.
Hey guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Daniel, you got anything coming out you want to chill out lately? You don't have a channel or anything, but the AAPN, the Atheist Against Pseudoscience.
Pseudoscientific nonsense. Yeah, it's been
nonsense.
Trudging along since 2015. We were trying to get our website to do a little bit more complicated stuff, but things are getting complicated, and my time has been kind of consumed lately, as well as the other people out there. But we'll get along a little bit more. But we don't generate video content. If you want to think of us, we're more like the Snopes of the atheist community. And we've had our skin in the game for a while, so and it took a long time to develop credibility. But it's flattering when I have somebody who doesn't know who I am try telling me what AAPN is and how credible it is, and that right there gives me it's like, oh, they're telling me it's like, oh, do you know what AAPN is? Like, well, let's see.
Well, I should have links to that. I'll put a link for you because you've been on the show. I've got plenty of links to the AAPN. Matter of fact, we stream, I think, to the page. We don't stream to the group because complications. If you want to fix it, we can fix it. But otherwise, guys, I'm going to wrap it up, and we will see you tomorrow. We've got The Rage is going to be on the show, and we're going to talk about, Andy and I are going to talk with Rage. The topic is going to be this article Andy sent me. I got to mention this. Hey, Andy, can you remind us while I look at this pastor? Please,
a pastor who has an AM hate radio show is talking about how you shouldn't be dating or marrying an intelligent woman because you'd have to take their feelings and thoughts while you're having sex with them into consideration. And I wish I was straw manning this guy, but I'm not. It's basically what he is saying.
So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Gentlemen, if you're watching, do not marry smart women. You'll have to take in their thoughts, needs, and sexual wants and desires into account. And
Yeah.
with dumb women, apparently you don't have to do that, I guess. Does it like come from the factory? Is that like a thing, a checkbox? I want mine without emotions, without sexual desires and needs. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. We're going to talk about it tomorrow with the rage. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you all. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to all the people watching on Facebook and our listeners on the Daily Atheist Morning Show podcast. You guys have a wonderful day, and we will see you tomorrow.
Take care.
Oh my God. Jesus. Do you like it?
Sometimes you can choose to not be a dick. Yes. Thank you.
I can't take it off. I can't take it off. Like, take it off. I can't. Take it off. I can't take it off. Like, take it off. I can't.
Thank you for watching the show. A special shout out to my gold level Patreon supporters, Cindy Plaza and Ian Davenport. Thank you and have a great day.